My friends, we have all stood before locked doors. Some are made of wood and iron, others of doubt and fear. Some refuse to open because of the weight of our past, others because we do not yet know how to knock. But what if I told you that there is something you can say 3 times, no less, and every door, even the most stubborn, would yield? But before you grow too excited, let me warn you, the words are not magic, not in the way you might hope. They are not a spell, nor a charm to twist the will of the universe in your favor. No, they are something far older, far stronger. They are words that reshape the speaker as much as they move the world around them. Doors are everywhere. They stand between where we are and where we want to be. Some are physical, made of wood, iron, or glass, but others are more insidious, built of fear, doubt, and uncertainty. We all know the feeling of standing before one of these doors, hesitating, uncertain whether it will ever open for us. Some doors are slammed shut in our faces, others locked so tightly that we grow weary from knocking. And then there are those doors that we do not even attempt to approach, convinced from the start that they will never let us through. It is tempting to believe that these doors exist outside of us, that they are placed in our path by forces beyond our control. And sometimes this is true. Life can be unfair, and circumstances often create barriers that we did not choose. But more often than not, the greatest doors in our lives are not made of stone or steel, but of the words we have whispered to ourselves for years. I am not ready. I am not good enough. It is too late for me. These doors are built from within, and they are the hardest to break through. Consider for a moment the child who stands before a door that leads to an unknown place. They do not yet know whether it will open or not, but what determines their next move is not the door itself, it is their own belief. If they knock with confidence, they are met with possibilities. If they hesitate, if they convince themselves that no one will answer, they turn away before they have even given the door a chance to yield. The same is true for all of us. The doors that matter most in life rarely come with signs that tell us whether they will open or stay shut. It is our approach, our courage, and sometimes our persistence that determines what happens next. Many of us carry with us the memory of doors that would not open. We remember the rejection, the disappointment, the moment we walked away in defeat. And these memories shape the way we face every new door in our path. But here is a truth that few of us realize. A door that was closed to us once is not necessarily closed forever. Circumstances change, we change, and what seemed impossible yesterday may be entirely within reach today. But we will never know if we do not try again. There is also the danger of mistaking a locked door for the end of the road. Too often we stand before a door, try once to open it, and when it does not budge, we assume that is the final answer. But doors are meant to be knocked on. Some require patience, some require the right key, which may take time to find, and some, despite all our efforts, will never open because they were never meant for us. Yet even in those moments when we face a door that refuses to move, we must not despair. A closed door is not the end of the journey, it is simply a signpost telling us to look for another way. And then there are the most deceptive doors of all, the ones that appear locked but never were. How many of us have stood before an opportunity, convinced that it was beyond our reach, only to discover later that all we had to do was push? How many dreams have gone unfulfilled? How many lives have remained unchanged simply because someone assumed a door was closed without ever testing it? The tragedy is not in the locked door, but in the one who never tried to open it. Tragedy is not in the locked door, but in the one who never tried to open it. In the end, the doors in our lives are not the real obstacles. The true barriers lie within us, in our fears, our doubts, and our unwillingness to believe that what we seek is possible. But just as we can build these barriers, we can also tear them down. It begins with a shift in perspective, a willingness to challenge the assumptions that have kept us standing on the wrong side of the threshold for too long. So the next time you find yourself before a door, do not assume it is closed. Do not let past failures convince you that it is locked. And most of all, do not walk away without trying, because doors do not open on their own. They open to those who are brave enough to knock. Words have power. This is something we often say, but rarely do we stop to consider just how deep that truth runs. Words shape the way we see the world, the way we see ourselves, and the way others perceive us. A single sentence spoken in the right moment can open doors we never thought possible, just as a careless phrase can shut them forever. We have all felt the weight of words, whether they were spoken to us or by us. We have felt the sting of words that wounded, the encouragement of words that lifted us, and the regret of words we wish we could take back. But more than anything, we have felt the silent influence of the words we tell ourselves, the ones no one else hears but that shape our actions all the same. When standing before an obstacle, the first battle is not against the barrier itself, but against the voice in our own mind. It is that voice that determines whether we step forward or turn away. Before we even lift our hand to knock, we have already begun the work of either opening the door or sealing it shut. If we approach with hesitation, if we tell ourselves that the door is locked before we even try, then in a way, it is locked. Not by any real barrier, but by our own unwillingness to believe it could be otherwise. This is why what we say matters, not just to others, but to ourselves. Consider a person who is given an opportunity that feels beyond their reach. Perhaps it is a new job, a chance to speak in front of others, or an invitation into something unfamiliar. The first words they say to themselves in response will determine everything. If their first instinct is to say, "I can't do this," they have already placed themselves outside the door. They may go through the motions, but in their heart, they have already decided that they are unworthy, unprepared, or doomed to fail. The words have done their work before any action has even taken place. But if instead they say, "I am capable, I will try, I will learn," then the door, no matter how heavy, begins to shift. The words themselves do not force it open, but they change the person standing before it. There is a reason that repetition holds such power. When we say something once, it may seem insignificant. When we say it twice, we begin to believe it. And by the third time, it becomes a part of us. This is why words, when spoken with conviction, begin to change the course of our lives. It is not that they hold some magical force that bends reality to our will, but rather that they bend us, shaping our thoughts and actions in ways that make the impossible possible. This is not about empty affirmations or speaking things into existence as if by sheer will. It is about understanding that the way we speak determines the way we act, and the way we act determines the results we see. If a person speaks with confidence, they will carry themselves differently. If they believe that a door will open, they will knock with certainty instead of hesitation. And if they expect failure, they will approach with the kind of reluctance that ensures their own defeat. We have all known people whose words seem to carry an undeniable weight. When they speak, we listen, not because their voice is louder, but because their belief in their own words gives them authority. They speak not as those who are asking for permission, but as those who know the power of conviction. And if we look closely, we will see that their words are not simply a reflection of their confidence, but the very thing that creates it. They did not begin as fearless orators or bold decision makers. They became so by choosing again and again to speak as though they believed, even when they did not. And so the doors in our lives are not just waiting for action, they are waiting for words. Not careless, thoughtless words, but words spoken with the kind of belief that changes the person speaking them. We do not always need to know exactly what lies beyond the door. We do not need to have all the answers or be certain of every step ahead. But we do need to speak in a way that aligns with the future we want to step into. We need to stop telling ourselves that the door is locked before we have even tried the handle. If the words we choose determine the course of our steps, then let us choose them wisely. Let us not be careless with the power that language holds over our lives. Let us speak in a way that moves us forward, that prepares us for the doors ahead, and that reminds us of what we are capable of. Because doors do not open for those who stand in silence. They open for those who are willing to speak. The journey of change never happens all at once. Transformation is not a sudden event, but a process, one that unfolds in stages. The first time we attempt something new, the first time we challenge the barriers in front of us, there is hesitation. The mind, so accustomed to its familiar patterns, resists. Doubt creeps in, whispering that failure is inevitable, that we are not strong enough, that the effort will be wasted. This is the first stage, the moment of uncertainty, the test of our willingness to even begin. It is easy to give up here. Many do. They stand before the door, reach for the handle, and then step back, convinced that nothing will change. It is not that the door is unmovable, but that they do not yet have the strength to push against it. And so they turn away, telling themselves that the attempt was futile, never realizing that the first effort was never meant to open the door, but to prepare them for the next. But those who persist move forward. They return to the door, try again. The second time is different. The fear is still there, but it is quieter. The hands do not tremble as much. The words come more easily. The doubt has not disappeared, but neither has the determination. There is still uncertainty, but now there is something else, momentum. The door may not open yet, but it is no longer an impossibility. The thought begins to take shape. Perhaps this is not beyond me after all. And that thought changes everything. This is where many battles are won, not in the moment of complete victory, but in the realization that victory is possible. Once a person reaches this stage, they are already closer to the other side of the door than they realize. But it is not enough to simply see the possibility. They must act on it. They must speak again, push again, step forward again. Because transformation is not about a single moment of courage, but a series of choices, repeated until they become part of who we are. The third time, something shifts. The mind has grown accustomed to the idea that the door can open. The hands, once hesitant, now move with confidence. The words are spoken not as a plea, but as a declaration. And suddenly, what once seemed so impossible is no longer a barrier at all. The door moves, not because it was forced open by sheer will, but because the person standing before it has changed. They are not the same hesitant soul who stood before it the first time. They are stronger now, bolder, ready. And so the door, which was never truly locked, yields. But here is the great irony. By the time the door finally opens, it is no longer the most important thing. The real victory was never about the door itself, but about what happened in the process of trying to open it. The true transformation was not on the other side, but in the steps taken to reach it. The one who finally steps through is not the same as the one who first stood before it. And that is why the journey mattered more than the destination. Many people spend their lives waiting for doors to open on their first attempt. When they do not, they assume that it was not meant to be, that they were not good enough, that the opportunity was never theirs to take. They see obstacles as final verdicts rather than invitations to grow. But those who understand the process of change know that doors do not open simply because we wish them to. They open because we have become the kind of person who is ready to walk through them. This is why persistence matters. This is why we must be willing to speak, to act, to try again. Because the first time we attempt something new, we are not yet the person who can succeed at it. Growth takes time. Confidence is built, not given. Strength is developed, not granted in a single moment. If we are willing to endure the discomfort of the first attempt, if we are willing to return to the door a second time, if we are willing to try a third time and beyond, then we will find that what once seemed impossible is now within reach. But there is another truth we must face. Not every door will open. Some will remain closed no matter how many times we try. And yet, even in those moments, the process is not wasted. Because the effort of knocking, the act of speaking, the discipline of trying again, they have already changed us. And sometimes that was the real purpose all along. When we understand that transformation happens in stages, we stop expecting immediate results and start embracing the journey. We stop seeing failure as a reason to quit and start seeing it as part of the process. We recognize that the hesitation of the first attempt, the uncertainty of the second, and the confidence of the third are all necessary steps toward change. And when we finally reach the point where the door opens, we will not be surprised. Because by then we will have already become the kind of person who is always meant to walk through. The idea that we already hold the key to the doors before us is difficult to accept. We are so used to searching for answers outside of ourselves, waiting for permission, waiting for the right moment, waiting for someone to hand us what we need. We tell ourselves that if only we had more knowledge, more resources, more opportunity, then we could step forward. But the truth is that most of what we need is already within us. The problem is not that we lack the key. It is that we do not recognize it for what it is. People often assume that obstacles exist because they are not yet ready to overcome them. They think that when the time is right, everything will fall into place. But in most cases, readiness is not something we wait for. It is something we grow into. The key does not suddenly appear in our hands at the perfect moment. It has been there all along, hidden beneath layers of fear, doubt, and uncertainty. The process of moving forward is not about searching for something external, but about uncovering what has been buried within us from the start. Consider the way a child learns to walk. At first, they do not believe they can. They watch others move with ease while they remain on the ground, unable to balance, unable to take even a single step. But no one tells them that they must wait until they are completely ready. No one tells them to sit still until they feel confident. Instead, they attempt. They stumble, they fail, and with each attempt, they uncover an ability that was always there, waiting to be discovered. Walking was never something they needed to acquire. It was something they needed to unlock through experience. The same is true for so many of the challenges we face. The courage we seek is already within us. The strength we believe we lack has been there all along, waiting for the moment we dare to use it. The wisdom we long for is not something to be given to us, but something to be uncovered as we move forward. The only thing standing between us and the realization of these truths is our own reluctance to believe that we are already capable. But what does it mean to have the key? It means that we are not as powerless as we think. It means that the ability to take the next step, to push forward, to grow has always been available to us. It means that the door is not locked in the way we assumed. It is only waiting for us to stop hesitating and turn the handle. This is not to say that every challenge is easy or that there is never real difficulty in the obstacles we face. Some doors are heavy, requiring more effort, more persistence. Some require us to grow before we can pass through, but none of them require us to be perfect before we begin. Too often, people delay action because they believe they must first become someone else, someone stronger, wiser, more prepared. But the irony is that it is in taking action that they become that person. The transformation does not happen before the attempt. It happens because of it. Imagine a person who longs to speak with confidence, to stand before others and express themselves with clarity. They tell themselves that they need more time, more practice, more assurance before they begin. And so they wait, believing that one day they will wake up and feel ready. But readiness does not come in isolation. It does not appear suddenly, unearned. It comes only through speaking, through stumbling over words, through learning in the act of doing. The confidence they seek is already within them, but it will never emerge unless they first allow themselves to try. This is the great realization that changes everything. We do not need to wait to be fully prepared before we act. The key is already in our hands. The first step is always within reach. But we must be willing to trust that what we need will reveal itself as we move forward. We must understand that the fear we feel before we begin is not proof that we are incapable. It is simply the natural discomfort that comes with growth. Some people spend their entire lives waiting for the moment when they will finally feel ready. They stand before doors, hesitating, looking for confirmation that they are worthy of stepping through. But the ones who succeed, the ones who move forward, are not necessarily the ones with more talent or resources. They are the ones who understand that the only way to become ready is to begin. They are the ones who take the key they have always held and finally use it. And so, the greatest challenge is not in finding the key, but in believing that we already have it. It is in trusting that we do not need to be fearless to move forward. It is in realizing that the doors before us are not as locked as they seem. The moment we recognize this, everything changes. The moment we stop waiting and start moving, the path begins to open. And in that moment, we understand that the only thing that ever truly held us back was the belief that we were not ready. There is a moment that comes to all of us when we find ourselves standing before a door that does not open. We knock, we push, we wait, and still there is no movement. The silence on the other side grows heavier with each passing moment, and doubt begins to take root. We wonder if we have reached the end of the road, if this is a sign that we should turn back. And so many of us do. We take a step away, convincing ourselves that it was not meant to be. But what if we are wrong? What if the door is not truly locked but simply requires something more from us? Many of the greatest opportunities in life do not yield to a single attempt. They do not give way at the first knock, nor do they open simply because we wish them to. Some doors require persistence. Some require patience. Some require the willingness to stand there longer than seems reasonable, to knock again when it feels foolish, to push forward when every voice in our head tells us to give up. Not because the door is stubborn, but because what waits on the other side is not for those who quit too easily. The mistake many people make is believing that a closed door is the same as a locked one. They assume that if something does not happen immediately, it will never happen at all. They try once, maybe twice, and when the result is not what they hoped for, they walk away. But what they do not realize is that most doors in life are not meant to open on the first attempt. Some are testing our resolves, some are waiting to see if we truly want what lies beyond them, and some require us to grow into the kind of person who is ready to walk through. Think of the writer who submits a manuscript and is met with rejection. They could assume the door is closed and abandon their dream, or they could refine their work, improve their craft, and try again. The difference between those who succeed and those who do not is often nothing more than the willingness to keep knocking. The same is true for the entrepreneur who faces failure, the student who struggles, the artist who is overlooked. In every case, the ones who reach the other side are the ones who refuse to accept the first no as the final answer. But persistence is not just about effort, it is about belief. It is about knowing deep within that the door will open if we do not give up. This belief changes the way we approach the challenge. It gives us the patience to endure setbacks, the strength to face disappointment, and the wisdom to know that delays do not mean denial. It reminds us that just because something has not happened yet does not mean it will never happen. This is where many struggle. When a door remains closed for too long, it is easy to lose faith. Doubt creeps in, whispering that we are wasting our time. We begin to wonder if we are chasing something that was never meant for us. And yet, if we look back at history, at the stories of those who achieved great things, we find a common thread. They did not stop when the door refused to open. They knocked again. They searched for another way in. They stood firm when others would have walked away. And so, when we stand before a door that does not budge, we must ask ourselves, have we truly given it everything? Have we knocked with the full force of our conviction? Have we been patient enough, persistent enough, willing enough to do what it takes? Or have we been too quick to assume that a delay is the same as a rejection? Of course, not every door is meant to open. Some remain closed because they are leading us down a path that is not ours to walk. But how will we ever know which doors are truly locked and which ones require more persistence if we give up too soon? The answer is simple. We must keep knocking until we are certain. We must continue to push forward until we know, beyond any doubt, that we have done all we can. Only then can we walk away with peace, knowing that we did not abandon an opportunity too soon. Life does not give its greatest rewards to those who try once and walk away. It gives them to those who are willing to return, to try again, to believe even when there is no evidence that belief is justified. It is not always the most talented, the most gifted, or the most fortunate who succeed. More often, it is the ones who simply refuse to stop knocking. So when you find yourself before a closed door, do not assume it will always remain so. Do not let one failure, one rejection, or one moment of doubt convince you that your journey is over. Knock again, push forward, stay a little longer, because sometimes the only difference between those who succeed and those who do not is that one kept knocking while the other walked away. When the door finally opens, when the barrier that once seemed unmovable gives way, something remarkable happens. At first, there is relief, perhaps even disbelief. The moment that once felt impossible is now reality. The waiting, the effort, the persistence, all of it has led to this. But then, something else emerges, something even more profound. The realization that the real victory was never just about opening the door. The journey itself has transformed the one who stands before it. Many people assume that success is about reaching the goal, crossing the finish line, achieving the thing they have fought for. They believe that happiness, fulfillment, and meaning exist on the other side of the struggle. But what they do not always realize is that by the time they arrive, they are no longer the same person who began the journey. The pursuit itself has shaped them. The very act of striving, of refusing to give up, has made them into someone new. Think of the climber who scales a mountain. At the beginning, they are filled with anticipation, but also with doubt. The peak is distant, the path uncertain. Each step requires effort, determination, and endurance. There are moments when they wonder if they will make it, moments when they are tempted to turn back. But they press on. They push through fatigue, through discomfort, through the endless voice of uncertainty. And then, at last, they reach the summit. But when they look out over the world from that height, they realize something unexpected. The view is not the only reward. The journey itself has changed them. They are not the same person who stood at the base of the mountain. They are stronger now, wiser, more resilient. This is the hidden truth about the doors we struggle to open. It is not just about what is on the other side. It is about who we become in the process of trying to open them. Every challenge, every moment of doubt, every refusal to give up, it all reshapes us, preparing us not only for the opportunity ahead, but for all the doors yet to come. Consider the artist who spends years honing their craft, facing rejection after rejection. At first, their goal is simple: to be recognized, to have their work appreciated. But as they continue, as they refine their skills, as they learn to persist through difficulty, they begin to see that the pursuit itself is valuable. It is not just about the final piece of work or the applause of an audience. It is about the discipline, the growth, the mastery they develop along the way. By the time success arrives, they have already won something greater than recognition. They have become someone who can create at a level they never imagined when they first began. The same is true for any pursuit. The student who studies relentlessly to pass an exam does not simply gain knowledge, they build perseverance. The entrepreneur who faces failure after failure does not just create a business, they develop resilience. The athlete who trains day after day does not merely prepare for a competition, they forge discipline. And when the moment of success finally comes, they realize that the most valuable thing they have gained is not just the achievement itself, but the person they have become in pursuit of it. This is why the struggle is never wasted. Even when progress seems slow, even when the door remains shut longer than we expected, the effort is shaping us in ways we do not yet understand. Every attempt strengthens us. Every setback teaches us. Every failure refines us. And by the time we finally step through, we are prepared not just to be on the other side, but to thrive there. But there is something else to consider. Once one door opens, another will appear. The process does not end. Growth is never finished. The same persistence, patience, and courage that brought us here will be needed again and again as new challenges arise. But the difference is that now we know. Now we have seen for ourselves that doors do open, that obstacles are not permanent, that the struggle is worth it. And because we know this, we no longer fear the next closed door in our path. This is the ultimate gift of the journey, not just the destination, not just the moment of success, but the unshakable confidence that comes from knowing we are capable of more than we once believed. The knowledge that no door is truly closed unless we stop knocking. The certainty that with each attempt, we are not only moving closer to our goal, but becoming the kind of person who is ready to walk through when the moment comes. And so when we look back, we understand it was never just about opening a door. It was about becoming someone who never stops seeking, never stops growing, never stops believing, because once we have seen what persistence can do, once we have felt the transformation it brings, we are never the same again. We are stronger, we are ready, and no door will ever seem impossible again.